Modern Asking Alexandria have some major fucking problems. Let's be honest, in the metal community there are certain names that are synonymous with a ton of hate. They become the poster children for being the ones that are the metaphorical punching bags that people just love to lay into, demean, degrade, and say all sorts of nasty, vile shit about. They talk about the character of the people, they talk about the execution of the music, and most of the time it just boils down to unconstructive jibber-jabber. You could blame it on Danny Worsnop, you could blame it on their lyrics, you could blame it on their aesthetic, you could blame it on their look, you could blame it on the fact that they are pretty much one of the most red-handed culprits of the mall emo scene-core craze of the 2000s and were one of the biggest contributors to that movement. But the biggest thing that you usually see people talk about in the latter part of the last decade, and especially this decade, is how Asking Alexandria have changed their sound. And I wanted to tackle this. I wanted to dig down deep into this because honestly, like the little fucking mole rat I am, I love talking about this type of stuff and I love to dive into sort of the philosophical meanings or the deeper meanings of things. And generally speaking, I'm a big fan of Asking Alexandria. I own most of their discography on physical copy, ranging from Stand Up and Scream all the way to their self-titled album. But I have been very hypercritical and hypervigilant in defending my points and stance of believing that Asking Alexandria just sound like a washed-up beluga whale, castrated of any rich textured ideas that they had, and pretty much becoming geriatric one-dimensional butt rock players. And with the recent release of their track, they had a very interesting rollout for this thing. You wanna know what they marketed this shit as? They said that it was a return to form, that it was a return to their heaviness, and you asked for heaviness, so we're supplying the goods. And you know what? That would be a good promise if they actually delivered on something that didn't just sound like everything they have been doing on their past two lukewarm records with just a breakdown in it and Danny doing some modern alternative metal vocals. And listen, I want to make one thing abundantly clear before someone comments it. I am not someone that thinks a band can evolve, nor do I think that heavy equals good. I actually plan on doing a whole video about why heavy doesn't just equal good. And some of my favorite bands have toned down their sound throughout time, and some of my favorite genres and favorite bands are not heavy. So it literally has absolutely nothing to do with me thinking that Asking Alexandria need to go back and write music like they did on Stand Up and Scream. No, it literally just boils down to the fact that their execution is sloppy. But I didn't come here to critique their music. I didn't come here to critique the reasons that I think that they are good or bad. I've done that before. I don't want to beat a dead horse. The horse has been bludgeoned to death with a fucking mallet at this point. I'm not going to reiterate myself or the thousands of points that everyone else that came before me have said. What I am going to do, however, is talk about the primary issue with modern Asking Alexandria. And I think this boils down to a very simple and objective truth. They are fence sitters. They are the musical equivalent of centrists, and they cannot decide who the fuck they want to appeal to anymore. After Dennis Stoff's era of Asking Alexandria with the Black Album, albeit a short stint, happened, people were hopeful for a new era of Asking Alexandria. And then Danny came back into the band. And Danny came back after focusing on his hard rock group We Are Harlot and even releasing a country album. And if you don't believe me, go check it out yourself. I reviewed it back in the day. Because yippee me, I'm a glutton for punishment. Yes, feed me! And their self-titled album is actually a record that I like to defend a lot because I think it does have a lot of creative ideas, and even if it isn't the metalcore that people were expecting Danny to come back with, it didn't make it a bad album, and in fact I think it is one of their stronger records lyrically, production-wise, but it just fell off a cliff when they took their hard rock detour on the subsequent two records. And unfortunately, the main issue that I'm seeing is that they don't understand who they want to appeal to anymore. They disenfranchised their past fans, or at least the fans that wanted heaviness on their newer releases, and they have caught so much criticism and pretty much shifted their reputation almost overnight to having the reputation as like the band that got butt rocked, and you weren't Bring Me the Horizon, you weren't one of these bands that changed up their style for the positive, and you had a whole new crop of fans come in that didn't previously like the type of music that Asking Alexandria performed, and that's perfectly fine. You're appealing to to a new demographic, you're appealing to a new audience. And obviously there are a lot of people that are going to enjoy your music regardless, but the amount of criticism that I saw in comment sections, on forums, and reviews back when these big singles, when they started going in this direction, released, it was insane how many fans were pretty much dropping off of a cliff and saying that they just didn't care anymore. And ever since then, people have been holding out hope that something would happen. And the issue is Asking Alexandria like leading their fans on like we're horses and they're holding the fucking carrots on sticks, because they keep putting in front of us that they're going to be heavy. And it's not a requirement that they have to be heavy, but the issue is if you are constantly promising your fan base that, you're just going to tank your reputation more. You can't just throw in some weird chunky half-baked breakdown and have a couple screamed vocals and call it a day and act like you're going to please your fan base. If you end up doing that, you are going to end up pleasing nobody. Because on one side of the spectrum, you have the newer crop of fans that don't really understand these stylistic differences and divergencies and aren't a big fan. But then on the other hand, you have older fans who were literally so hyped for the return of the Asking Alexandria that they knew and loved. And what they ended up getting is something that isn't even recognizable for the old Asking Alexandria. And I think a lot of it comes down to them just being incapable of writing the music that they used to, unfortunately. I think that Danny's influences have changed over the years. His country isms and his hard rock isms have bled through more and more. Their riff styles have changed, and overall they have just matured as artists in a direction where they aren't going to write the old material that they used to write when they had all that youthful exuberance. And that's fine. They are in this weird middle ground where they don't commit to a sound. They try to have distortion, and they try to have feedback, and they try to do these big budget choruses and videos because they want to appeal to this large demographic, but they end up pleasing nobody when it comes to the die-hard fans because they're so split on what the hell they are trying to do. But on recent releases from Asking Alexandria, it isn't the fact that they are writing hard rock music. It's the fact that they are writing the most dime a dozen and uninspired hard rock music that feels like it's just robbed of all of the creativity and texture that it could be having. They feel like they are just trying to get that radio play, that they are trying to be on Octane. And every single time you hear a big single, please tell me that I'm wrong when you say you wouldn't just roll your eyes, put a hand on your head, and say they are playing for Spotify's top 50 rock or metal songs of the year. It really feels like they have sold out a lot of their creativity for the sake of becoming bigger and pushing the envelope in a direction that I think is just creatively bankrupt. And while the numbers have gone up, their reputation in the metal and rock community have just been meh, because the numbers and the streams are going to be high, but how many of those numbers or streams are actually diehard fans that ride or die your music and aren't just people putting your music on when they're at the gym or as background music when they're playing a video game? And there's obviously nothing wrong with that. But compared to some of the reputations of their contemporaries, they sit at such a weird crossroads where they are just stripped of any actual genre distinction because they try to play in so many different wheelhouses and appeal to so many different crowds, and they're just ending up appealing to nobody and tanking their reputation in the metal and rock community all at the same time. I suppose the one thing that you can say is a positive is the fact that given the modern rock field and the things that are considered rock in the modern rock field, it's good to have a band like Asking Alexandria there that is actually playing, God forbid, I never thought I'd say this, guitar music. But generally speaking, I just think that the way that they market their music and the way that they push their music and the direction that they have went in just shows that they are trying to build up these demographics and are playing more for radio plays and big concerts than they're actually playing for making creatively rich music. And they could have made this transition and fleshed out their style. The first time they did it, people were probably like, hey, they're just getting their style fleshed out. The second time they did it, it was just like, man, this pretty much sounds like an even worse version of the first time. It just feels like they are diving off of a cliff head first and expecting not to break their fucking skull open. It just feels weird, and it feels extremely out of touch with what they evidently think people want, because this modern style just doesn't sound great. And if you think that a modern metal band can't make amazing rock songs and more low-key songs, that's incorrect. Look at bands like Dayseeker. Look at bands like Holding Absence. Look at bands like Bad Omens. These are very tangible goals that you can have where you take this style and actually do something rich. But dare I say, a lot of Asking Alexandria's modern music just sounds lazy. That's just my opinion at the end of the day, and it's coming from someone who loves and grew up with this band, and they were literally on my favorite albums list. But what are your opinions of Asking Alexandria, both in the past and present and potentially future? Be sure to let me know down in the comment section below if you agree or disagree. I can't wait to hear it. Don't be afraid to share your opinion. But otherwise, be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is. My name is Jay Morris, and I'm signing off saying farewell.